strange reason that I'm on this couch today, and I must say that we have discussed this on the show before, uh, but it seems as though things continue to happen, within this world, within dating relationships and within business relationships, and within men and women mingling, that we still can't seem to figure certain things out. So as much as it saddens me to make this video, uh, it's something that we must continue to discuss because it's going to help us out in the long run. I feel like I have some information for us today that really may help us out if you guys decide to share it, if you guys decide to comment, if you guys decide to get involved, with today's conversation. And so, for one, let's just go ahead and start off with the subject of, fellas, no means no. I want to say that again. No, N-O, means no. It literally means exactly that. The reason why we're having this conversation today is because some people feel as though the word no does not mean no, as if it is a word that doesn't hold as much weight as the definition of it does. I haven't looked up the actual Webster Merriam definition of no, but I believe that it should be on the lines of, if something is no, then that would mean that it is not to be, or that it can't happen, or that it shouldn't happen, or that it wouldn't happen, based on the answer or the word no being involved, especially when it comes from a woman. And, you don't want to be in a situation where, I don't want to say this bad, but when a woman does say no, this is a situation that you should, be very much aware of, because she either is not pleased with what she is receiving, or she is not, she's not willing or desired to be a part of whatever it is that she does not want to be a part of. And for men, you gotta learn the word no too. Because I'm telling you, as a man, I have to stand up for myself and let women know, like, hey, listen, I said no. No means no. We all have to have some boundaries. But what I want to talk about today is the fact that there are some men who feel as though the word no doesn't hold as much weight as the definition provides for it. Why is it that when a woman says no, some men think that, oh no, she didn't mean that for real. Oh no, no just mean yes for real. They just be playing. Oh man, when they say no and stop, I don't listen to that. I know what a woman want because I'm a man. I know what she really want. And I've heard those statements growing up too, fellas. I've seen situations where maybe that was to be true. Where she said, stop playing, stop. Oh, you need to stop. And, maybe she may have been saying it in a joking manner. But one thing I do know is that based on the countless stories that I've heard, the countless stories that you and I have heard, the countless news articles that we've read, the amount of professional athletes who have damaged and severed, their professional career due to aggressive manner and not listening to the word no or the word stop. And in 2026, I had to ask, how many more stories do we have to hear? How many more jail sentences? How many more people have to be embarrassed all over social media, all over the news, for us to realize that putting ourselves in those type of situations is not the best idea? If a woman says no, I'll speak from my standpoint. When I hear a woman saying the word no, we should all have a list of, trigger words or red flags. I don't allow women to call me certain names. I don't allow them to disrespect me, in certain manners. I don't allow no disrespect, but certain manners is gonna get you cut off immediately. And so when I hear the word no, it's like, this is a stop sign for me. And understand exactly what I just said, fellas. This right here may be a stop sign. Notice I didn't say a car crash. Notice I didn't say this was the end of your bus route where you got to get off the route, right? I didn't say that. It could be a simple stop sign. But guess what you need to do? You need to stop. Example, since we're using stop signs, there are people out here who study traffic to see, where are the best places to put, stop signs, and where are the best places to put exits on the side of the highway. Does this yield sign need to be here? So in certain situations, we're going to run into, like, why is this stop sign here? Why is this red light right here? This seems dumb. Yeah, it might seem dumb to you, but somebody on a neighborhood board or a city board or a state board, they voted, for this stop sign or for this red light. And you as a driver, it's only your job to adhere to the signs on the road. Fellas, and it's the same thing if you're dealing with a woman in your care. If there's a woman in your care, and you pick her up, and y'all riding down the street, and she say, hey, stop. Take me back home. Guess what you do? You stop. You turn your car around. And on the way home, you get quick, hey, sweetheart, what's the reason we're going home? But what's going to always separate you from other guys is what you do after you hear those words. It's going to be your response. Are you aggressive? Do you call her out of her name? Do you treat her as if her judgment is bad? Do you belittle her, in this situation? Your response is going to trigger a response from her, and it's also going to register with her as far as how men act when those type words come up, no and stop. So if you decide like, hey, you know what? I'm going to run this stop sign. I don't care. I'm going to run it. You make it worse for other men like me, where they fear us and they call us predators, and they don't trust us when they're around us mingling in different relationship environments, business environments, or just spaces where men and women are. They don't trust us anymore. They don't trust us to at least listen and adhere to the signs. Now, what I'm hitting on right now is asking you guys to, when you hear stop, when you hear no, I'm asking you to go ahead and just do what's right. But that is a whole nother conversation. I'm just asking you to do what she says. Asking you to do what's right from a man's standpoint from how we have to even operate different from how they allow us to. And fellas, if you are familiar with how, emotional some of our women can be, if you're familiar with how, wishy-washy they can be, one day they're this way and the next day they're this way. One day she's saying stop and the next day she's not saying stop. You got to be able to understand that and be aware of that, because when you're, dealing with certain women, you may have some who are a little bit more flawed in those areas compared to women who can control those areas. But in the midst of it, you need to understand that that woman is in your hands. She's in your protection. So it might be certain things that you have to do just because, so that you can remain as a protector, because that's what they see us as. This dude, he's supposed to protect me. He's supposed to have my best interest. And sometimes we don't do that when we run the signs, when we disregard the no's and the stops. Fellas, I don't know what reason it may be, but if she says stop, if she says no, allow her that moment for whatever it may be. And allow yourself the moment to be in the lane, in the position that you need to be in, which is always in the protection committee. You want to always be on the side of protection. Why? Because the other side of that is jail time. The other side of that, hey, death sentence. Who knows? If you cross the lines and go too far, she might want to call her brother, her dad. I mean, who knows? Her ex, her baby daddy, who knows? If you decide that you just want to run those lines. I know some of y'all watching this video like, Justin, so many of them told me no and they still went with it. Hey, some of them have a lot of trauma as well. You'd be surprised how many women have like bad traumatic experiences from, sexual experiences that you as the man probably thought that it was okay, but the woman probably felt pressured. She probably felt tempted, forced. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. And from what I've heard personally, women tell me from the stories that I've heard, it always comes down to the man as far as why wasn't he in protection mode. Sometimes we're so focused on getting what we can get that we take off our protection badge. And I'm just going to illustrate it to you like this. If you're going to take off your protection badge, you look more like a predator. If at any moment you decide, like, hey, I want to explore different options. I want to see if I can run these signs. I want to try things my way. In order for you to drive a car, you got to have your license. You got to have your insurance. You got to have tires. Got to have air in them. You got to make sure that your oil running right. You can't have no cracked windshield. Where you don't have a wind. You got to check your mirrors. You got to make sure everything is right when you dealing with the car. Every car ain't the same, but you're supposed to check that car and make sure everything is right with it. And I use that analogy just to understand, just to help us understand, that, you can drive a car all day, but if you're not treating it right, then it's going to end up going bad on you. And so, although you do have the luxury, to drive, you get what I'm saying? It's like, hey, you got to drive it properly and you got to handle it with care. And that's all cars. If you want that hoopty to last, or if you want that Bentley to last, you gotta do your part. And so hopefully all of this makes sense. I know I use a lot of analogies today. I'm trying to be nice about the situation. But understand that no means no. No means no. I understand that there's so many other, alternatives and riding. It sounded, she was sounding like she was just, listen, if it sounds like no, if it sounds like stop, if it sounds like just honor it. Honor that stop sign. You never know. She may need a break. She may need to just catch her breath. She may need to calm down for it. You just never know. But I'm going to tell you, you need to honor it. Honor it before you do something in between that time that damages her and either traumatizes her or causes her to call 911 on you. And that's all for today, man. This is Justin Evans from the J.E. Show. I love you all. Peace, love, and blessings. No means no. We out.